Good afternoon, this is Corey with another 2D tutorial for Adobe Illustrator, 2D tutorial. Today I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about the pen tool. Just go over some basics for those newcomers to Illustrator. The pen tool kind of gets a bad rap. It's a kind of hard and intimidating tool when you're first opening up Illustrator to kind of get used to. It's not like you're grabbing a brush tool and just kind of drawing on your paper. You're actually clicking down points and creating vector artwork with paths and all kinds of stuff. So let's go ahead and dive in. The pen tool is a drawing tool. It, like I said, is not like a brush tool where you're just going to drag your mouse around and draw a pretty picture. It's a lot more intricate than that. So let's go ahead and open it up. The pen tool is 5 tools down, and if you hold your mouse down, the menu will stay open, and you go over here to this little arrow on the end and tear off that grouping of tools there into a separate window. That's just for easier access to the pen tools. So go ahead and click the pen tool. There's basically one way to use it, and that's by clicking out anchor points, and in between those anchor points a path will be developed automatically via the software. So let me go ahead and show that to you. If you click, you'll develop an anchor point represented by a blue dot in Illustrator, and you click another anchor point and there has been a path snapped in between the 2 anchor points. So if you continue to do that, you continue to snap down straight paths in between the anchor points, and you can literally do that anywhere in space here and create any sort of grouping of line segments that you want. Now, if you wanted to close that into a solid shape, you just hover over the very first anchor point you created, and you'll notice a little circle pops up next to your cursor, and that is to indicate a closed path. So click that, and that will close that into one solid shape. And you can add a color to that shape and do whatever you want there. Now, in a previous tutorial I had talked about the direct selection tool. That's for then grabbing these anchor points and adjusting them however you want, or grabbing an individual path or group of anchor points and moving those around. Now, the other option for the pen tool, other than just clicking out points and having a straight line segment snapped in between the two, is to click and hold your mouse down and drag, and that will give you a curved path in between those points. It's called a Bezier curve. B-E-Z-I-E-R, Bezier, it's French. Now you'll notice when you're dragging out those points, you're pulling out 2 little weird lines from the anchor point. Those are called handles. They're directional handles that control the amount of curve and how that curve is represented in between the 2 points. So, for example, if I click and drag out a point, the longer I pull out these handles, the more you notice the curve adjust. Now, if you use your direct selection tool and you click the blue dot on the end of those handles, you can go back and adjust those handles to however you want your curve represented. Now, you notice that when I'm adjusting one side of the handles, it affects the other side, and that's Illustrator's way of keeping the curve as smooth as possible. There's one thing you can do if for some reason you don't need a smooth curve. Say you want a curved line going into a hard point, a hard corner. So let's give an example here. Click and drag, click and drag, and click and drag, click and drag, and let's close the shape. So now let's say you didn't want this a smooth curve. Let's say you wanted this to curve in and then turn at 90 degrees there and have a hard corner there. What you can do is break these handles, and by breaking them I mean having one side of the handles not affect the other side. You'll notice again how they're tracking together to create the smoothest curve possible. You can break those handles by holding down the Alt key, and a little plus sign will come up next to your cursor, and you can then grab that blue dot and break the handles. So now each handle operates independently of the other and does not affect one side of the curve or the other. It gives you a hard point right in the center. Now let's go ahead and look at these other iterations of the pen tool up here. You might be looking at these, wondering what these guys are. They're really pretty simple. There's a plus sign next to one, there's a minus sign next to one, and it does exactly what you would think they would do. It adds an anchor point when you're over a path, or it subtracts an anchor point if you're over an already existing anchor point. And that's all those tools do. So if you go back to your regular pen tool, you'll notice that you can do that without even hitting these two pen tool options here. If you hover over a path with no anchor point, it'll give you a little plus sign next to your cursor to add an anchor point. Or if you over an existing anchor point, with the normal pen tool, if you hover over an already existing anchor point, it'll give you the option for a minus sign to delete it, and of course you can delete it. Got to be really careful with that because you'll notice it just adjusted my curve completely, so it will affect that. There's all kinds of strategy on where you actually put your anchor points and how your handles are in relation to one another, and I'll go over that in another tutorial. This is just a kind of a basic guide to get you used to how the pen tool works. There's one more tool in here. It's the Convert Anchor Point tool, and that does exactly what it sounds like it'll do. It'll convert the anchor point to the opposite style of anchor point. So if you've got a curve, if you've got an anchor point that's affecting the path as a Bezier curve, you can convert that to a hard point, or you can convert it by clicking and dragging back to a Bezier curve. Or like right here is a Bezier curve. You click it, and it'll convert it to a hard anchor point. So that's pretty much the basics of the pen tool. Really quick again, click straight paths by clicking and letting off, joining by the first anchor point, clicking and dragging for Bezier curves. And again, those aren't pretty curves by any means. I'll go over that in a future tutorial on how to keep your curves nice and pretty, and all the proper usage of the Bezier the curve handles and all that kind of stuff. Hope you enjoyed this basic pen tutorial. Go ahead and have your friends subscribe yourself to my channel, and I will keep putting out tutorials on 2D graphics. Thanks a lot, guys.